July 2019 in a provincial Conforama store. Sarah just puts a tag on a sofa. For 12 years, she's been doing the same thing in this store. Then her phone vibrates. The store will close in 3 weeks. She looks up. Customers keep testing mattresses. The music is playing. She's having trouble breathing.
The furniture retailer Conforama is heading for a major restructuring.
Yes.
This could be one of the biggest industrial stories of the year. More than 2,000 jobs are at risk.
Nothing about destroying Sarah's career was decided in France, but thousands of miles away by people who don't even know she exists. So how did a company that once conquered all of France end up unable to pay its employees? How can a group that brings in 3 billion euros every year wake up one morning with its coffers completely empty? Can you really sink 50 years of French history from an office 10,000 kilometers away from Paris without anyone noticing? Hey team, I hope you're doing well. Today we're tackling the story of Conforama. It's the story of an invisible heist and a colossal fraud on the other side of the world that ended up strangling a historic brand. Before we start, just a reminder, you can find this video as a podcast on all platforms. The link is in the description or via the QR code that's displayed. 1965 in Saint-Priest, a suburb of Lyon. 4 entrepreneur friends meet around a table. Pierre and Guy Lieve, Jean Doyer, Jean Moll, and Jacques Ragageau. They just got back from Sweden and are still in shock from what they've seen.
Excuse me, we were blown away. Absolutely. We saw a scale we never imagined.
On 4 floors, they discover a furniture superstore that looks like an art gallery. It's spacious, it's modern. The furniture is designed by the country's most cutting-edge designers, and you can find everything here, including areas organized by theme.
Have you guessed the name of the store you just heard about? It's IKEA, of course. By the way, let me know if you're interested in a video on the subject. In short, at that time, furnishing your home in France was too expensive, or at least too expensive for most families. And our 4 friends thought there had to be something they could do to solve this problem. Their idea was simple: to take inspiration from what they had just seen. Open a large store where any French family can come and buy a bed, a table, a sofa without having to go into debt for it. And they're going to set up their first store. A 2,500 square meter store in the outbuildings of an old St. Priest farm will be named Conforama.
In 1967, they launched Conforama, a French-style IKEA in a more traditional and rustic style, suited to the French tastes of the time. They sell chipboard furniture, which is cheaper than solid wood.
Customers keep coming back. Other stores will open. First in France, then abroad. In Luxembourg, Switzerland, Spain, Portugal, and Italy. And the slogan that will stick with the brand for 20 years will end up taking hold all on its own. Go to Conforama, the place where life is cheaper. And this slogan isn't just an advertising promise. It's what millions of French people will actually experience. Parents buying their first sofa, young people furnishing their first apartment. I myself bought my first bed there.
We'll go. Yes, we'll all go to Conforama.
In 2010, Conforama is number 2 in furniture in France, with 14% market share just behind IKEA, and the group employs nearly 9,000 people. It's part of the French landscape. Conforama is a powerhouse. It is profitable, generates cash, and dominates the commercial areas of France. It's what our American friends call a cash cow. A real cash cow. And what no one imagines at that moment is that it's precisely this good health that will cause its downfall. Because while everything seems to be working, someone is making a decision far from here. And contrary to what you might think, the real danger won't come from Sweden. It will come from an office in Johannesburg, South Africa, and it's already on its way. It's 2011. Conforama is changing hands. And to understand what's going to happen, you first need to know who owned it. Since 1991, Conforama has been in the hands of François Pinault, the founder of what will become one of the largest luxury groups in the world, with Gucci, Saint Laurent, and Balenciaga. The man behind Kering, one of the richest Frenchmen of his generation. For 20 years, Conforama was the cash cow of the group. It financed the empire. But in 2003, François-Henri Pinault, the son, took the reins of PPR, the name of the family group at the time, and he had a very clear vision. The future of the group is luxury. Retail, big box stores, furniture, and all that stuff. There's nothing glamorous about it. So in 2011, he sold Conforama for 1.2 billion euros. The buyer was called Steinhoff International. In France, nobody had ever heard that name. Yet it's a group founded in 1964 in Germany by a man named Bruno Steinhoff, who made his living by buying cheap furniture in the East to resell it in the West during the Cold War. In 1997, he bought a stake in a South African company called Goma. And in 1998, he decided to move his entire headquarters to South Africa, attracted by the country's very low production costs. That's where he took his group public in Johannesburg, and that's when Steinhoff began its transformation into a global powerhouse. More than 6,500 stores around 30 countries and 40 different brands for Conforama, Steinhoff is the ideal buyer on paper. A group that is international, has huge financial resources, and ambitions that go far beyond French borders. No one is asking any questions. And yet, as you can guess, they should have. What no one sees at that moment is that for years, the leaders of Steinhoff have been falsifying their accounts. They inflate profits, invent transactions, and overvalue their assets. And according to an investigation conducted by PwC, 6.5 billion euros of fake transactions are piling up in the group's accounting books. 6.5 billion. That's the equivalent of the GDP of a small country like Liechtenstein. Conforama, 10,000 kilometers from Johannesburg, has just tied its fate to this lie. Without knowing it, of course. But wait, the real problem isn't even that the numbers were fake. It's that Steinhoff used Conforama as a financial shield. They used the strength of the French stores to guarantee their massive debt on the other side of the world. That actually reminds me of the story about Picard I told you about a while ago. To put it simply, if the headquarters goes down, Conforama goes down with them. But it gets even worse. Every evening, the cash earned in the stores in Lyon or Paris was sent back to South Africa to pay off the group's debts instead of being reinvested here. Of course, the bomb is going to take some time to explode. Let's move forward to December 2017. Steinhoff suddenly announces massive accounting irregularities. Marcus Just, the CEO, resigns on December 6th overnight without any public explanation. Steinhoff's stock is going to collapse by more than 80% in just a few days.
The next day, Steinhoff said it had lost about 150 billion rand in value.
And Conforama suddenly finds itself with a ruined shareholder, no available cash, and above all, no one answering the phone from Johannesburg. The company has just lost control of its own destiny. It doesn't know it yet, but it's going to pay for it dearly. It's 2019. Years have passed since the Steinhoff scandal, and this time Conforama's downfall is impossible to avoid. In July 2019, management announced the closure of 42 stores and the elimination of 1,900 jobs. Entire teams will learn the news in the morning when they arrive at work, without having been warned.
This is news that was feared by all employees of the Conforama Group. Management is planning a large-scale layoff plan that will affect several of its brands. In total, 1,900 positions out of the 9,200 in the group are to be cut next year, which is 20% of the workforce.
Those staying at the open stores believe the worst is over and the company can recover. But a few months later, COVID hits and everything stops within days. The stores close, customers disappear, and revenue will drop by 95% during the lockdown. 2 months during which the company will continue to pay out without bringing in anything in return. So Conforama will try one last thing and will request a state-guaranteed loan of 322 million euros. COVID is causing the first bankruptcies in the furniture sector.
The retailer Alinea files for bankruptcy, and Conforama threatens to do the same if it doesn't urgently receive state aid.
On paper, it's a lifeline. But you know the saying, when it rains, it pours. And Conforama just keeps piling up the problems. BNP Paribas, one of the 4 banks approached, is going to block the negotiations.
It's a terrible shock for the employees because, of course, there were rumors that there would be a layoff plan. We never could have imagined it would be on this scale, especially since we know that our group is profitable.
On May 15th, everyone is gathered to finalize the loan. The representative of BNP Paribas decides not to come to the meeting without giving any explanation. And while the weeks go by and the bank remains silent, the management will do something discreet, but it will be brutal. They will inform the Ministry of Economy that salaries will no longer be paid beyond the month of June.
Catches up with us. We were number 2 behind IKEA for many years. We moved to 3rd place because Butte overtook us a little less than a year ago. And I'm really afraid that the management isn't looking for solutions for that. But are rather serving a handful of creditors who have them by the throat.
9,000 employees with rent to pay, loans to repay, families to feed, and a bank that holds their future in its hands without even answering their calls.
I think the most unbearable thing is day-to-day life. Because every day we don't know when we're going to be laid off, if we're going to be laid off, or if there might be a buyer or not. So that's what daily life is like.
I'm a parent of 3 children, and I still have a few years before retirement. And yes, it's a big question mark.
The summer of 2020 arrives, and after months of tension and uncertainty, a solution is starting to take shape. It's not the one the employees were hoping for, but it's still an outcome. On July 8th, Steinhoff announces the sale of Conforama France to Mobilux, the holding company that controls Butte stores, Conforama's direct competitor. In other words, Confo is going to be bought by the company it has been competing against for decades. And it's quite an interesting story if you think about it, because Butte was founded in 1972 by an entrepreneur who had contacted Conforama to open a franchise, was refused, and then decided to launch his own brand as a result. So that the deal can go through quickly, without having to wait months for review, the Competition Authority will grant an exceptional waiver on July 23, 2020, and it's the first time since its creation that it will invoke what's called the failing firm exception, a mechanism that allows a direct competitor to acquire a company when it's about to disappear, and there are no other possible buyers. On September 23, 2020, the sale is officially finalized. The 170 Conforama stores still open will come under the control of Butte, and in September 2024, 4 years after the acquisition, a joint legal entity is officially created. It's called Butte Conforama Holding France. Today, if you walk past a Conforama store, it's still open. The brand still exists, but Conforama doesn't really exist anymore as an independent company. It has become the subsidiary of the one it used to compete against. But the most disturbing thing in this story is that Conforama wasn't killed by IKEA, by the internet, or by customers who changed their habits. It was brought down by a fraud on the other side of the world, by people who didn't care at all about its well-being. So the business lesson I want you to remember today is that no matter how good your work is, if you build your house on someone else's land, you're never really at home. Conforama had loyal customers and strong teams, but above them, there was an owner who was gambling with their future in a casino 10,000 kilometers away. The reality of business is that working hard isn't enough if you don't hold the keys. If the one holding the keys decides to tear everything down to cover his own losses, he won't ask for your opinion. He'll cut the power, pull down the shutters, and that's it. And Decathlon understood that very well. After a disastrous start where the founder was betrayed by his suppliers, he decided to plan the biggest act of revenge in the entire sports industry, as shown in the video that's playing.